We can use the @content directive inside a mixin to allow the caller of the mixin to supply some content to be embedded within it. So here we've got the @mixin directive, and here we're calling this mixin as we would do normally using the include directive. When we call a mixin in this way, anything that we put inside here will be passed to the mixin, and where the @content directive is placed, this content inside the include directive here will be included here. So let's save this and take a look at our generated CSS. Just format this with Ctrl-ED. And we can see we've got our background color pink here, which was specified inside our include here. So we're setting the col1 class to pink, and we can see the col1 class here being set to pink. But because we've called it inside this mixin, we've got this body.loggedin, which comes from our mixin here. So we've effectively called our mixin and told it to add some additional content here when we call it. We can take advantage of this content directive when we're working with media queries. So let's just close these. And let's take a look at our styles here. So here we've got selector for article and aside. And we can see in our HTML here we've got an article and an aside. So in Sass we can specify this media query here. So here we're just saying that it's the screen with a maximum of 500 pixels, and when this condition is true, we're going to effectively hide this aside element. Otherwise it's just going to be pink and visible. So let's just see this in action. And we'll change the size of the browser window here. So as we shrink the browser window here, because we're floated left, the aside content drops down. And as we continue to reduce the size of the browser window, we get to 500 pixels, and then our media query kicks in, and our aside gets hidden. So while we could take this approach for styling all of our elements to have this media screen and max width 500, in a large style sheet we're going to end up with some duplication creeping in. So let's see how we can combine the power of parameterized mixins along with the @content directive to refactor this. So first of all, let's go and define a couple of variables. So these variables are going to define the responsive breakpoints. And if you've not heard the term breakpoint before, we can think of it as a logical condition that will apply a different set of styles to elements. So here we're using different breakpoints for different widths. So we've got this small breakpoint of 300 pixels and this medium breakpoint of 500 pixels. So let's go ahead and define our mixin now. So here we're defining a mixin called screen media, and we're going to allow a caller to pass a width to it, which will set the max width in the media query here. We're then making use of the content directive to allow the caller to pass in the different styles that we want when this breakpoint is hit. So now we've defined our mixin, let's go and refactor our aside. So first off, let's just remove this media query because we're going to use the mixin instead. And let's replace this with a call to our screen media mixin, and here we're passing the value of the small breakpoint. So when the small breakpoint is hit, in this case 300 pixels, we'll hide the aside element. Because we're using a mixin now in combination with some variables to specify the breakpoint, we can also include a different breakpoint here for aside for the medium breakpoint. So again, we're calling our mixin, this time with the medium breakpoint, and passing our content, which will be included here where this @content directive appears. So let's save this and see it in action. So we'll start off with no breakpoints in action. So as we start to reduce the width of the browser window, We can see our float take effect, so the aside just moves down. And as we continue, we'll hit our 500 pixel breakpoint. So now our aside turns green. And as we continue to reduce the size of the window, when we hit our small breakpoint of 300 pixels, the aside gets hidden now. And if we take a look at our resulting CSS, we can see our standard aside formatting here, followed by our small breakpoint formatting here for our aside, and also our medium breakpoint formatting here for our aside, which turns it to green. So that's how we can use parameterized mixins in conjunction with media queries and the @content directive to allow us to reduce duplication and create more maintainable code when we're dealing with media queries.